Veterans That Rock. Hey, we are Veterans That Rock. My name is Sailor Scott. My co-host is over here, Zach Rabbit. We are Veterans That Rock. We are a monthly podcast that feature and showcase veterans that are into the arts, whether musicians, painters, photographers, and actors. So stay tuned. We're going to have many guests on the show. Tonight's episode is on a very special person, Mr. Johnny Cash.
Mr. Johnny Cash.
Yes.
Roll it.
You got anything against the Air Force? No? I do.
No. So, Zach, you were in the Air Force. Do you have anything against the Air Force?
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I don't know if I would have been in the Air Force if it wasn't for Johnny Cash, believe it or not. Yeah, he was one of the first, he was one of the few people that I actually uh was shocked to learn was in the military. And it was from the same scene that you just showed, Walk the Line. I'd also had a stepbrother who had joined before myself. So that mixed with this movie of seeing, a musical person joining the military and becoming successful at the end, I was like, all right, that's gotta be the way to go. I almost joined the Marine Corps first, actually. I'd been in the delayed entry program, which is a real one with them. You went like 2, 3 times a week running. And I was like about to sign the paperwork. I was 17 with my mom, and she just kind of gave me a look, and I looked at her too, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't know if the Marines is for me. So I went with the Air Force instead. Found out later it was actually a parental or a familial thing. My grandfather was in the Korea in the 60s in the Air Force.
Interesting. Yeah, Johnny Cash joined, I believe he joined in 1950, right? July 7th, 1950.
Yes.
The start of the Korean War. Basic training at Laughlin Air Force Base and technical training at Brooks Air Force Base, which is in San Antonio, Texas. So
Beautiful
yeah,
place. Home of the Alamo.
yeah. Did you do basic training there, or had it moved since?
No, I did do basic training there, which yeah, at the time I didn't really go in with any kind of knowledge about basic training. I was freeballing it, and for the vets out there, I'm sure you'll understand. So I remember when I got there on the white bus and everything, people were like, "Oh my God, it's the dorms," and like, "Here's this and here's that." There was times where I'd be running during basic training, and you'd have the big like C5s flying overhead while you're running in the circle on the track, and it was a crazy experience. And then to think like he was doing the same thing 50 years before that, it definitely struck me being in the Air Force and sort of just being a part of that thing as just like he was. And like everywhere you went, there was always something talking about Johnny Cash being in the Air Force, as well as like other famous people like Chuck Norris was also in the Air Force as well. I actually was, a little off topic, but the dojo he had in Korea, I used to see like every day when I'd be picking up my fatty snacks from the
Oh man,
fried food parlor down the way.
that's really cool. We'll have to touch up on that when we get up to Chuck Norris, but that's pretty cool. Well, it's also cool that you probably ran on the same, jogging and calisthenics training ground as Johnny Cash. So
It's what it felt like.
yeah. Yeah, so Johnny Cash grew up in Dyess, Arkansas. His mother wanted to name him John, and his father wanted to name him Ray. He was J.R. Cash, and by the time he enlisted, when he enlisted, the Air Force doesn't do just initials, so they basically went with Johnny R. Cash.
Who
Johnny
was
R.
like,
Cash.
he was really smart. I'm pretty sure he tested at like the top levels of his class, which kind of guaranteed him a job. And I believe he worked in some kind of intel operation.
Yeah. Yeah, so Johnny Cash, he was later stationed in Landsberg, Germany. He was a like Morse code specialist, from his Air Force training, spying on the Russians over in Germany at the time. And yeah, I believe that's when he bought his first official guitar, even though his mother taught him guitar. I guess he had bought, saved up like I think something like $5 and like went for a 5 mile walk or something into town and bought his guitar, right? Which we all know, like if you watched Johnny Cash Man in Black with Joaquin Phoenix, like you see him in like, writing.
Yeah, the hangar. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite scenes. That's probably one of the reasons I joined. I'm sure. Here's a clip of that right now.
My mama said to me, son, always be a good boy. Don't you mess around with guns. But I killed a man in Reno just to watch him die. When I hear that whistle blowing, I hang my head.
Yeah, what a cool clip. I mean, I wish they had cameras back then, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about that movie was that they actually put us in the room. I'm not 100% sure. Unfortunately, I didn't really follow up on the research. But like, I mean, that would have been the truth. And I don't know anyone else in the military who's, doing their art in their own ways. You have those similar, feelings. You can't not, just with, the things that you see. And then kind of going backwards, I was an ammo troop in the Air Force, so I dealt with explosives. Um, Johnny Cash was a Morse code operator, and I don't know about you, Scott, but you know, uh, times you had with operations professionals or how it works in the communications professionals in the Navy. But I worked with a reservist who was in the Army doing the same job as Johnny Cash in the late 80s, early 90s. And he was the leader of the reserve unit at Dover Air Force Base. And like he would tell us stories about exactly what you described, just like, he was in Cuba, I believe, listening to conversations through Morse code. And I was lucky enough to know some intel professionals when I was in the military, and they still have those things today. Different communication methods, obviously. I mean, I've been out now for since 2019, so things are always changing in the Air Force. The one thing that I find really interesting, though, is the fact that Johnny reacted the way he did in Walk the Line when he goes to see Sam Phillips, which I'm sure like we'll have a clip of that.
Excuse me, sir. You the owner of this place?
That's me,
Hello, I'm J.R. Cash.
Sam Phillips.
Well, good to meet you, Mr. Phillips. I'm a singer, and I got a band. We've been working on some songs.
You want to cut a record, son? It's $4.
Well, what about the guys there on the wall in the pictures? I mean, they pay $4?
They're on my label.
Well, how do I get on there?
You audition.
Right now?
Call my secretary, Marion, when she comes back. She's at the salon. She'll set you up an appointment next month.
Well, I can't wait that long, Mr. Phillips.
Excuse me.
I can't wait that long.
Sam Phillips from Sun Records.
Yes. Yeah. So, Johnny Cash, he was in Landsberg, Germany.
Well, I have when he was in Landsberg, Germany. This is coming from the internet, but it did say that Cash was said to be the first American to be given news of Joseph Stalin's death.
Yeah, that's the one
His
I was just
daughter,
reading.
his daughter Roseanne talks about um, many times over the years. I mean, that's pretty cool. Like, the communication back then. They were this is like, next level intelligence. Like, which we get, all the time through, TVs and whatever. It's pretty cool.
Well, that time too, I mean, all that technology, since the Air Force was like brand new as well. Like the Army Air Corps uh, became the United States Air Force, its own individual, service to because air power is such an important part of warfare, and you always kind of have to be on the cutting edge of that, which does require a lot of stress, a lot of mental stress specifically, and one thing that tends to help soldiers or airmen, sailors, and Coast Guard peeps like Marines, can't forget them, is a little bit of companionship in the romantic sense, And Johnny found that in a woman named Vivian. Which in itself is a pretty interesting story because I'm pretty sure Vivian's father was some higher level sergeant or something, and Johnny met her in Texas and went over to Landsberg and was like, "I'm going to marry you," and he came back and he did.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he was, rooted in good moral values. He wanted to be with her and faithful. And as we kind of know the story of, how he eventually later on was getting famous and met June Carter. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's a crazy story on itself because there's all kinds of things out there saying that June knew she wanted Johnny from the beginning, and you walk the line kind of details that Johnny may have had a crush, and she might have been an inspiration on him musically younger as well. Which again, I mean, I couldn't tell you because I don't really the romantic part of it doesn't really matter as much to me personally as a fan, but it is a subject that should be discussed because it is interesting, and they both were legends in their own rights, And she was famous, June Carter, like in the time of, like Hank Williams and stuff too, which is pretty wild because it was sort of the birth of all of that. They were like a traveling musical family, but June never thought she had a great voice, so she became funny and was kind of known as like the funny one.
yeah. June Carter, the daughter of Maybelle Carter, was cousins with her first cousin, Sarah Carter, and the Carter husband, A.P. Carter, who are like the pioneers of like folk country, I think, in the 20s, So yeah, there's a huge lineage of, and then when they hooked up, it was just like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they did all kinds of radio performances and like they were a very, very well-known entertainment family. And
yeah,
I guess Johnny met her on tour after I think he released Cry Cry Cry.
right, right,
And like you have to remember too that like I mean at the time these uh other musicians that he was playing with were all renegades and rebels, and like they were doing stuff that they were the first of their kind. We take a lot of stuff for granted now. I mean, you and I are both rock musicians. We kind of understand the cool aspects of life, the things that him and that crowd did. Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins,
oh yeah,
I can't remember the piano
Jerry Lee
guy.
Lewis, Jerry Lee
Jerry Lee Lewis. Yeah, I mean,
Lewis.
that's the biggest one. Actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to show you just a quick clip because I think any deployed person or any musician or artist that has a traveling career can probably get along with this.
God gave us a great big apple, see? And he said, don't touch it. He didn't say touch it once in a while. He didn't say take a nibble when you're hungry. He said, don't touch it. Don't think about touching it. Don't sing about touching it. Don't think about singing about touching it.
You got your lighter, JR?
This is the one.
Yeah. All right, you help me get up in there. Grab that fuse.
How long we got after we light it?
About 30 seconds a foot.
Does your wife know how much you like to blow stuff up?
Sure she does. That's why I married her, John.
True. Oh, Molly.
That's why I married her, John.
You can tell he's not an
Way to go,
ammo troop.
Johnny boy.
There's a roundabout of four, and I thought she would stop. She looked at me, and then she looked at the clock.
So there you go.
Yeah, that was awesome. I
A little
mean,
bit of core hijinks.
I know we're referencing a lot of the movie, but
Well, I mean, the movie was, approved by him. So, like, I think that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're referencing a lot of the movie, but I mean, it's awesome. You can't deny that movie. Is
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a dramatic thing, but in all seriousness, I mean, that was what these guys were doing. They were the original rebels. I mean, this is post-war America. This is the same time as like, the roving motorcycle gangs and like,
Yeah,
all that, innovation and in the way we think and the technology. It was all happened at this time, and these guys were in the middle of it and also culturally molding it.
right. And amphetamines were, over the
Rampant.
counter. So yeah, people were rocking and rolling 100%. Yeah, just a couple of, some more things with Johnny Cash. I don't have any recordings of this, but he created his first band called the Landsberg Barbarians in Germany, which I think is cool. I would love to hear what that sounds like. But I was just going through my records earlier, and I mean, this is a cool record. It's kind of not his hits are on here, but a little bit higher, yeah. So
It's crazy when you see him young too, because he always looks like he's like 90 years old. Like
I know
even
he's
when
like
he was like 25.
cool looking dude, man, just hanging out, you know. Maybe he just got done, doing
Kicking
some.
some ass or, just
I live in New
raising
York, so
money.
he looked like he's doing some farm stuff out here. Pretty cool. Yeah, so Johnny, I mean, I was in the Navy, and I do remember this. Like, we did have um, our Navy winter blue uniform, which is not like the sailor uniform. It is just like black slacks, nice belt, black button-down shirt, black tie, and they were referred to as Johnny. Get your Johnny Cashes on. We're doing, parade rest or something. So I think that was kind of
Wow.
cool. Like he had such an influence that, obviously playing in prisons and, trying to like really relate, his music across to the average, working man, um, whatever, struggling through a hard time or whatever, trying to uplift, the person. Um,
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's kind of interesting though, like in his later life, in the mid 60s through like the 70s, he also got really into indigenous uh, uh, he got into indigenous Native American charitable efforts and things like that, just bringing to light a dying, I think to use his words, like a dying national culture.
yeah, I mean, I think he was a really good-hearted dude. I mean, even like, there's you can read on the internet, he was friends with like some presidents like Nixon and Carter, and at one, we went to when he performed for Richard Nixon. Um, Nixon wanted him to play Okie from Muskogee, which is like a satirical Merle Haggard song that kind of like puts despises hippies and young drug users and Vietnam War protesters, and like he wouldn't do that for Richard Nixon. It's like,
Yeah.
as a
That's one thing. He was
there's-
so punk rock in that way. Like even his record label, not too long after that incident, he wanted to do the live at Folsom Prison record, and the record company didn't want him to do it, and he was like, I'm Johnny Cash,"
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah,
And it became one of like the best selling live albums like ever. Even to this day, it's still very well recognized.
yeah, yeah.
Kicked my microphone. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, people.
it's all good. Yeah, so I mean, Johnny Cash, I mean, rest in peace, man. Like he was, 1980, Johnny Cash was the youngest person to be induced into the Country Music Hall of Fame at 48 years old.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's some cool, facts. I love this one. Later on, after some of his drug use, it says Cash relapsed into an addiction after being administered painkillers for a serious abdominal injury pain in 1983 caused by an incident in which he was kicked and wounded by an ostrich on his farm. I mean, it's crazy stuff. And the other one I really loved is like at a hospital visit in 1988, this time to watch over Waylon Jennings, who was recovering from a heart attack. Jennings suggested that Cash have himself checked into the hospital for his own heart condition. Doctors recommended preventative heart surgery, and Cash underwent double bypass surgery just because, like, Waylon's like, yo, man, we've been partying a little bit. Like, while you're here checking on me, why don't you just get a little scan? And then he needed a double bypass heart surgery. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. What are the chances of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, it was a tough time for Johnny at that point. Again, we talked briefly about his past, the loss of his brother, the drunk father, the spousal abuse that he witnessed, just a lot of really tough things that we now realize. He went into the military, made all these things happen, but he even with all the success he had, he was still dealing with a lot, and that did eventually cost him his marriage. That's how he ended up with Waylon and all those guys and everything like that. And there was a crazy time, but it did end up working out for Johnny Cash in the end. I think anyone in the military knows that there's, things in life that you have to deal with when you transition out of the military, and you have kind of a mission oriented focus, I think. And who's to say, but I think that was one of the things that sort of led to Johnny's pathway there. But he actually did eventually get together with June Carter after years and years, who just wouldn't do it basically because of the uh, uh, image that he showed, the bad boy doing the drugs thing and all that. So they got uh, so Johnny proposed to June Carter February 22nd, and then they were married in March in Franklin, Kentucky,
Wow.
and they were together for the rest of their lives until she passed away, and he passed away not too long after. Real quick mention too, since we're going to be talking about this guest on our next podcast, Chris Christopherson worked with him in the end days of Johnny's life in the 2000s, and actually wrote a song for him. Lifelong friends with Waylon Jennings, and just a really inspirational career. And I think it also should be mentioned that he served the veterans of the armed forces all throughout his life, through the music that he had, uh, through the music that he had, and the so like one of the reasons Johnny Cash said he wore all black was on behalf of the poor and the hungry, for the prisoner who had long since repaid his time for his crime. And anyone who'd been betrayed by age or drugs. I think that Johnny Cash really showed that he was dedicated to that connection to his service his whole life, whether it be through his music or through just him showing up to Vietnam during that time in support of the troops. There's been other countless celebrities that I know I admire, like Robin Williams, who have done that kind of thing. Are known for that, and he was just like you said, he was a good-hearted man, and the reason his military career matters and should matter to veterans is an inspiration. He was somebody that took the skills that he learned while he was in, and he made his dreams happen. I don't know if if you agree or have anything to add to that, but I mean that's my take on Johnny Cash, and I'm very thankful to have been in the same service as he is, or I'm very thankful to be in the same service as he was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys are both Air Force vets,
And we're a crazy breed. I mean, like the Air Force, it's a small community of people, and we have a pretty high margin if you want to get into it. So you have to earn it. And I've met a few different Air Force vets actually in different parts of the country that have been on tour, and you know, it's funny because they don't really think they've done anything until they're in the room with another Air Force person. You know,
Yeah,
it's an interesting service to be a part of, and I definitely, you know, I recommend it to anyone that is looking for a career that will kind of keep on giving throughout your lifetime.
cool, man. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds cool. I did not join the Air Force, so I don't know what it's like, but it sounds like a smaller group of like, you know, maybe much more camaraderie than, me being stationed on an aircraft carrier is a little bit less camaraderie than being on a battleship or something like.
That's a question for the viewers too. I mean, you know, I personally have to say I think that the Air Force has less camaraderie because I think it's more based on where you're working, where you really get the community. Like myself, I don't see myself as an Air Force veteran. I see myself as a USAF ammo veteran
Okay,
because, you know, we
I see.
were a group of people that worked all the way out the end of the bond dump. We were allowed to go over the wire. You know, it's kind of the equivalent of being an operational, you know, infantry grunt or something like that. You know,
Yeah,
it wasn't
that sounds
uncommon to
familiar.
carry a firearm or anything like that.
Yeah, it sounds it reminds me, I guess, of like the squadrons in the Navy. They're like so tight niche, one person relies on the other like heavily.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Um, well, yeah. So yeah, speaking of, you've been totally inspired, from Johnny Cash and obviously music your whole life, and you're in a band, the Spiders of HBG. And I heard you guys just released a lyric video for your single.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, let's pop it up here.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Did you want to take a look at it?
Absolutely. Yeah, check it out.
Cool. So this is our new song, Keep On Trying. You can find it on YouTube. Uh, Here it is.
Orgy.
Yeah. That's our mascot, Georgie T. Spider, the 47. Um, he's awesome because he's a giant piece of crap. He's a horrible father. He doesn't take care of his duties as a parent or as a civic citizen. He just lives in our instruments and is kind of like a trashy couch surfer. But we were able to convince him to be our manager.
When I was young, I was always told that the world would never believe in you. No matter how much you progressed, you never get any success. What the hell was I gonna do? And with defiance, I was still. Well, I keep on trying until the sun goes down. I'll keep on lying until I get what I want, and then there's dying. Well, only when that is the only thing that's left for me to do. 'Cause I know I'll be better than you.
All right. Sure. So that's our new video.
Yeah. Awesome video. I love Georgie, that he's your manager.
Yeah, and he
He's
has
a
the
dirtbag spider.
it's just buy my shit, buy his t-shirts and his CDs. You know, like if you want to complain, you can complain to him and he doesn't care. You know, it's great. I recommend having a spider manager for everyone.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
going back a little bit, since it all sort of blends together, you know, Johnny was raised in 1930s America, Great Depression time frame. was a poor kid, very into, he had to pick the crops outside. This is pre-segregation America, so he was with, the workers of the farm, picking cotton out of the fields. It's something he talks about at great length, and it gave him a lot of respect, I think, for a hard day's labor. And I think that's something he always performed throughout his life, or else he wouldn't have the legacy that he has. Um, his father was a drinker. His mother was a very kind woman. Um, if you look at that relationship, I think it definitely shows a lot in Johnny's future when it relates to his romantic partners. But then he had like the biggest thing of all, which was also losing his brother Jack, which was something that he blamed himself a lot. So that's kind of just going to a little small short biography of the lead up to Johnny going into the Air Force, getting away from all of that. I know personally I felt that too, which I think is what linked me to him, because it was like if you can step away from your past and move forward, you can really, um, the world can be your oyster. And then that leads, I think, to the 1950s. Johnny had done the Air Force thing. He was now back home. He married Vivian, accomplishing that goal, which he was obviously a very goal-oriented person. And then he saw Sam Phillips' studio, Sun Studios in Memphis, Tennessee, and he said, "I'm gonna make a record there." And he's already completed so much, marrying the girl of his dreams and making a life for himself. He's now got a baby on the way, but he knows that that life isn't for him, and he's gonna do what he needs to do in his mind. And that was when he stepped into Sun Studios, and you get to see the clip we started from.
Exactly. Right, right, right. Thank you for watching. We are Veterans at Rock. Our next episode is on Mr. Chris Christopherson, who it seems only right to follow our next episode with him because his relationship with Johnny Cash and the Highwaymen, and how many times he's interacted with Mr. Johnny Cash, trying to give him his demo, not even cassettes, like before that, like a reel or something.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do him for sure. But let us know what you think. Was there anything in this video that you learned today about Johnny Cash? Is there anything that we missed that maybe we should know? How do you think that Johnny Cash's service affects his legacy and affects veterans today? Let us know below in the comments. Also, be sure to like, follow, subscribe. We're on all the socials, so your X's and your O's and your Instagrammies, definitely follow us. All the information below in the details. I'm Zach Rabbit. Thanks for coming today.
All right, stay tuned. Monday, March 10th, Chris Christopherson signing out.